On this week's episode of Circles Off, we'll be joined by Peter Jennings, the co-founder of FantasyLabs and the Action Network. He's part of Unabated Sports, part of Establish the Run, man of many different companies. We'll talk to him about all of those. We'll talk about NFTs, crypto. We'll play a game of Lodden. Don't know what Lodden is? Hang around, find out. This is Circles Off, episode number 86. Welcome to Circles Off, episode number 86 here on the Hammer Betting Network, presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook. 86.
Dalton Schultz.
I was about to say
2 first hitters in a row.
Yes. 86 is a pretty popular number in hockey. Like Kucherov is one. Jack Hughes wears 86. Growing up in the NFL, could never forget about Hines Ward.
Wow.
Hines Ward. Hines Ward was like such a consistently just good receiver. Like Mr. Reliable. You know what I'm saying?
Guy could take a hit. And hold on to the ball.
Oh, man. Just great hands. Hines Ward, one of the most underrated players ever, I would say. Like, when you think about great receivers, no one's throwing Hines Ward into the mix. Hines Ward was up there.
I only have one request, guys. Next episode, 87, I want to do the intro. Like, you know how when we intro people and we're like, this is what this guy does, like we bring on a guest and this is what he's a part of?
Who are you going to pick?
Oh, buddy, like who do you think I'm going to pick? This is 86. Next episode.
87. Come on.
I don't know, man. I'm kidding. Max Crosby?
Max. Gotta give, this guy deserves a proper intro.
Rob Gronkowski?
Yeah.
Gronk, man. Big kick coming up. Big kick. We have a big guest on this week's show. Very excited to get the thoughts of Peter Jennings on many different things. But once again, for all of you out there in Ontario, if you have not signed up at Pinnacle Sportsbook, you are doing yourself a disservice. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook. It is now available to all of you in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. As always, you must be 19 plus, and please play responsibly. We cannot preach that enough. Obviously, bankroll management, very important. So bet within your limits.
And if your limits are big, Pinnacle has the highest limits for NFL.
It's a banger. It's a banger. That's the beauty of betting at Pinnacle. You ain't going to get limited. You get down whatever you want.
All right. With that, we'll bring in the guest.
We now welcome in our guest for this week. He is the founder of FantasyLabs and the Action Network. He's part of the Unabated Sports team with our good friends Captain Jack Andrews and Rufus Peabody. He's part of Establish the Run with Adam Levitan and Evan Silva, who do great work over there. He is the founder of the Solver Sports, some DFS tools that you can check out at thesolver.com. He's also involved with Underdog Fantasy, Better Pool. He's involved with everything. We're going to ask him about that. You can follow him on Twitter at CSURAM88. Peter Jennings now joins us on Circles Off. Peter, how's it going?
Doing great. Thanks so much for the introduction and for getting all the promotion out there for those companies. That makes me very happy. So thanks, guys. Stoked to be here. A lot of mutual interest and excited to chat about all things betting and DFS and sports.
I can say this is episode 86. That was the longest intro of any guest so far. So
we should have saved him 2 episodes for CSU Ram 88.
See, man, we don't think about that stuff well enough. Yeah, we should have saved you for episode 88.
I actually thought when I first read your Twitter handle years ago, it was C Saram.
That's exactly the same thing I thought. Told Zach this before, so we're not even into it yet. I told producer Zach this before we started. That I'm so ashamed to even admit this, but for 5 years, I had no idea that this handle was CSU Ram. I just called him C Serum. That's what I used to call Peter Jennings.
I thought it was C Saram 88.
C-Saram.
But it is what it is.
You guys aren't alone. It's a horrible screen name. We'll get into it, but that started because that was like my first online poker screen name. I knew I was going to CSU. I'm not creative. I'm a donkey, and somehow that's my Twitter handle. So it's not good, and you guys aren't alone. It's confusing and it's terrible.
Well, I mean, listen, to each their own. I'm very ashamed of like my first screen names and emails. Like my first email I was a huge Carlos Delgado fan. My email was Delgado the Champ at hotmail.com. Like, you do things when you're younger that you're not proud of. So it is what it is. But we do want to get into your background here, Peter. Myself and Johnny know you pretty well. We know your story. But for all those out there who are listening and watching, give us some of your personal background and how you were first introduced to the gambling space.
Yeah, it's perfect with that name. I mean, I basically was always into fantasy sports and sports betting, on sides and whatever else. My friends for super small stakes, fantasy leagues, but really got serious about gambling with poker kind of during the same time everyone else was after the moneymaker boom. Played online in high school and then was making a living in college playing online poker. That got shut down right as I graduated. Crazy story, crazy true story. As it got shut down, I then transitioned to playing live poker for like 2-3 months. And my last live poker session as like trying to make it like as a professional poker player, we got stood up with shotguns and ski masks and the whole thing. So poker was clearly not the right direction. That was a sign for me. And that's when I went and got a corporate job at Charles Schwab. So
yeah, we got to get into that. What happened? What happened?
Yeah.
Were you up or down?
I was actually up and I had literally just won like one of the most recent hands with pocket aces. And it was like the luckiest hand ever. I had pocket aces. Someone else had like pocket eights and the flop was like ace, king, eight or something like that. Like I literally felt that the other person like zero skill, just super lucky. I flopped top set versus another set. So I was up and I couldn't really even be that happy about how I was doing because like multiple hands later, that's when we got stood up.
So I have a very similar story. So I played an underground game once that got robbed as well at gunpoint, and I mean maybe fake guns. I have no idea, but I always thought it was an inside job because like this is just the way that you would like you just collect a bunch of money from people and make it seem like it's an outsider that's coming in and taking all the money. You run away with it. I'm curious if you think that you were part of an inside job there.
100%. It was right after Black Friday and online poker, like literally months after. Everyone's desperate. Everyone has their money locked up on these sites. It was the highest stakes game that like this group of like, say 30 people, it was only 9 of us obviously that night, but like we're playing. And, you know, it was a cash game where you bring money. Like it was so obvious that we were a mark and I just don't see how it couldn't have been an inside job. And I wasn't even that scared, honestly. It was very surreal. It was obviously, you know, I've never been in that circumstance or any really violent circumstances before, but it just felt like a inside job. They took our money and they took our phones and that was it.
Oh, got the cell phone swipe too. That's tough.
That is tough.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. Especially, well, I mean, I guess back then it was actually like possible to like flip a guy's cell phone if you stole it. Now it's like you can't even really sell it.
Yeah, it's not use. Yeah, it's not worth anything now.
Tellable to someone who swipes it. So you obviously are a big sports fan as well, and we know you founded FantasyLabs, which then was later acquired by one of our competitors at betstamp, the Action Network. So I wanted to get into that story if you don't mind. How did that all come to be? Where did that start, and then how was the journey there?
Yeah, so just going back just a step, I worked at that stockbroker place. That's when FanDuel and DraftKings had started to get big. I actually started making more money, like planning my day around playing DFS in 2011, 2012, when the markets were really inefficient. And then I was fortunate enough to kind of win enough money to pursue DFS for full time. And it was just kind of right place, right time. I won FanDuel's first 6-figure prize, moved out to Cambridge, got to know the DraftKings guys, and literally signed a brand ambassador deal. And then my big win, just from a timing perspective and financially, was in 2014 when I won DraftKings' first live final in the Bahamas for $1 million. And I was already at that time a brand ambassador for DraftKings. So they used like my likeness for commercials and on subways and all this stuff. And it was just super lucky because I always had an aspiration to like build a business around this. So it was really easy to start FantasyLabs, just kind of given the really good timing and luck of winning that event during kind of the peak of the original DFS boom. We started FantasyLabs in 2015, and it was just right place, right time with Jonathan Bales and the engineers from Sports Insights. And we just had a really good business for the first couple of years and sold it to Churnin, which formed the Action Network because we really wanted to get into sports betting.
I'm very curious about the transition from the day job into full-time DFS. A lot of questions that we get to Circles Off when we do Q&As is like pretty much that exact same scenario for someone, which is like, I'm making X amount betting on sports. I have a day job. It's nice. How do I know when I'm ready to make the transition? For you, was it a difficult decision at all? Obviously, I know this from, I have very, very similar background to you. So very similar story, but I played poker and I was making very good money playing poker. And then you reach a level where it's like everyone is now better than me and I can no longer ascend further. I wonder if you had any of those thoughts in the DFS space, or if you just knew that like, this is just, I'm very early to enter this and this is like a killer decision for me.
Yeah, well, the decision to like pursue playing DFS was really easy, and I was fortunate to have supportive parents. And one thing I always tell people is like, at that time, I was 24 years old. If I failed, the consequences were not severe. It was like the perfect time to take a really big risk. So I think I was really fortunate just to have supportive family, and like, yeah, if I failed, like there was not really like a huge downside. So it was a really easy risk to take. I think it's harder if you have, family decisions, or like you're supporting other people, or you really need the money to live or whatever. Like there's harder times in life to take risks. And in general, I'm a big proponent of like betting on yourself and taking risks, but it's a lot easier to do if you don't have, other people counting on you. So I think I was very fortunate in that regard. And then in addition, going into the business side, like I knew I was early to DFS when the market was really inefficient. It was really easy to win. I know I'm not even close to the smartest guy in the room. So it was inevitable that my, time as like a top player was going to be limited. And I was always more interested in the business side. So to me, that was a pretty easy trade-off to make. And I was really excited about starting a business, and also just like pretty excited about the operators as well. So I was keen to get on the business side as well as still gamble and play DFS.
How early would you say that was your plan? Because I imagine, you give up a day job, you play DFS as a pro, you have an edge for, a substantial edge for a period of time. Like I remember playing DFS around the same time that you did, and people, baseball DFS, MLB, people didn't really know how to stack lineups properly, even at that time.
Right.
Like they didn't know that you could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the same lineup. They were just picking random players. Like that's how big the edge was at that time for people.
And they were giving away free money. It was overlay too. Right. People didn't know to stack, and there was overlay. So like if you were average, you were making money.
Right. So I imagine at some time you're probably seeing, okay, the competition is getting smarter. Was that when you started to think that, okay, this is not going to last forever, I potentially should start looking at other options? Or was this something that was always a dream of yours? Just curious, because, for me, stuff seems to get more difficult, and I start to say to myself, well, I don't necessarily want to do this anymore. I got to look for other outs. I got to look for other options that are available to me. Just curious where along in the process that came for you.
Yeah, I really wanted to do the business side. I probably started it where, like, especially short term, it definitely hurt my profitability. I think I was one of the biggest winners in like 2013, 2014, and 2015, in which the company, I started it. We ran into some regulation issues, but really the DFS market was very beatable and had like pretty big edges through like 2016, 17, 18. And some people would argue that the edges were still big, and maybe I know there's people out there making millions of dollars still. So like it's a peer-to-peer market. There's definitely some edges out there, especially if you're good, but the sophistication of like the top winning players has gone dramatically up. So I think regardless, I would have started the business, and I would have been forced to do more business oriented things, kind of probably in the 2017, 18 range. But yeah, I've always wanted to run a business, and I've always been enamored with just like building. So it was a pretty easy decision for me. And yeah, I think, also winning money early on, you start to understand the tax consequences of being a gambler. I know it's different in Canada, but that was a big proponent. And like, I saw that there was more upside, especially on the operator side. Like, I was playing DFS, but my original first job outside of being a stockbroker was for Star Street, which was an operator. I was probably most bullish on the operator side in like 2012, 13.
Was the FantasyLabs idea your own?
It was Jonathan Bales and I. We wanted to do something, and it was also, Roto Grinders was the main game in town, and all they were doing was just like content and shows. So there weren't really any tools or data companies in the DFS space. So it was pretty easy to like say, okay, they're focused on affiliate, they're doing content, no one's servicing on the tools side. And then we had these engineers that had all this background building sports insights. They were like, yeah, we love building, tools. We can probably build them for DFS. And we're kind of at the right place at the right time with the right people in 2015.
Do you think that the tools you build actually had like a significant edge for people in the early days?
Oh, massive edge. I mean, you 2015 people, that's like, so keep in mind, 2015 was the year that DraftKings and FanDuel in September spent more money than Coca-Cola and Geico on advertising. Okay. In 2015, like every commercial was a DraftKings commercial. So unique active users on like DraftKings and FanDuel like 10x'd in that year. So you had all these people coming in, people had no idea what they're doing. most NBA nights, people would play guys who are out. There's just infinite edges out there. And like the baseline of FantasyLabs products were basically taking, market data from, Vegas odds or wherever sportsbooks were out there at the time and applying those metrics to DFS. And I think that was immensely valuable, especially early on when people just had no clue what they were doing. So we were doing the player news, player projections, and then incorporating like basic odds data into DFS projections. And that was during the softest time in the market. So yeah, it definitely, I think, hurt my personal bottom line in 2015, but was clearly a really good long-term decision.
From experience, I would say that I would agree with your assessment. I started using FantasyLabs around that time just because it made the process more seamless for me. I had my own projections, but to be able to, I was basically running stuff in Excel that would take like 45 minutes to do all these simulations and stuff. Like, I'm a horrible coder, horrible at writing macros in Excel and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people around that time were using the tools just to kind of help scale their process. Like, people were winning at small scale, and now it's like, oh, all of a sudden I can simulate this and get 150 lineups very quickly and enter them all really quickly. I think that definitely was probably costly to your bottom line, but I think at the end of the day with the sale, in the long run, it probably worked out for you a lot more than it would have if you were just still playing DFS.
Right. And it was just a long-term thing. And yeah, optimizers weren't even a thing. Like, we were one of the first optimizer sites. So it's just like, it was just clear utility. And of course, the market got efficient a lot faster with the tools out there. And then, yeah, how much value was there at FantasyLabs, in the later days? And that's where I'd say it was much more correlated with like how much effort and how sophisticated and how smart the users were. Like, some people got tons of value out of FantasyLabs, whereas some people might not have gotten out of FantasyLabs because they just weren't putting the same amount of effort. Whereas in like the early days, like anyone who was on FantasyLabs was probably doing well or winning just because they were trying. And like anyone trying back in 2015, like if you couldn't win in 2014, 15, like, and you're trying, like, I don't know, that was, I think there was just so much edge out there.
So I was gambling back then in 2014, 2015, doing pretty well. And then I tried out DFS for the first time, did exactly what you said, just took gambling numbers and prop numbers that I was using already on my own, and then just made DFS lineups based on those. Found value, didn't use any optimizer or anything. I started off at like FanDuel. I don't remember like exact numbers, but I think I put in like 500 just to get a $500 bonus. There's like a big rollover. I ended up like what I didn't understand, like I had an edge because I was just doing exactly that, but I didn't really understand like bankroll management at the time as well. For that, I was pretty young. So I ended up rolling over one like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, end up rolling over and like end up having like $7-8 grand in my account, and then like donked it all back. So I literally just every week kept entering the same one lineup into every single contest for my entire roll. So then like my 5th week or 6th week, I had a bad week and then went bust. And then I'm like, nah, screw DFS. Like I'm making money gambling. Like I don't even like this. And then I ended up didn't catch the wave because of like stupidity on one bankroll management error that I didn't understand yet. Very funny, but it was
the props. I mean, I like this guy Birdwings who I was close with was like one of the top DFS players from like 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. His entire process was basically like, look at the Vegas odds, look at player props, came up with his own like Excel model based on player props and like a little bit of team totals, like a very simplistic thing. And like, he just crushed those early years with like a very basic process. And you think about the player props numbers back then, like player prop numbers are way more efficient now than they were in 2015, 2014. So it was definitely a ripe opportunity in those early days.
But I used to crush like season long fantasy making this and like trades and stuff. Like I'd deal guys, but like, oh, this guy's yardage total is like 42.5. And he's like, people think he's still good. And I'd pick up like a guy who's up and coming like 80 yardage total back in the day.
Right.
And it makes sense that he would crush, you know what I mean? Just looking at those totals, because it wasn't necessarily factored into the fantasy community. A lot of like big name value was there. I'm talking more season long, which I played in like 5 leagues. It was crazy. It's interesting how it all comes like full circle now. And then now I'm doing a lot of prop stuff, and it's like you're saying, more efficient. And then now it's like, well, where can I get an angle from like DFS that can help me beat player props? It's funny.
Well, just to what Johnny was saying, I mean, even though the market wasn't as efficient at that time, it was still better, in my opinion, than the other projections that were out there. So like, for example, in 2012, 2013, I thought I was like a really smart guy using AccuScore projections to bet into markets. And then I was like, no, these are not that good. And then I found another projection system, and I just kept thinking that I could use these before I came to the realization at some point, maybe I should just build out my own projection system. But at that time, even if the market was, even though it wasn't efficient, it still was the most efficient that was like publicly available at that time. So
it's still not efficient now. It's just the most efficient that we have.
Right.
So it makes sense. Peter, so you also essentially sold sold FantasyLabs alongside Sports Insights, which was a company by another friend of ours, Dan Fabrizio, who's now also a co-founder at Unabated for the listeners now. So you ended up selling that. Remind me of the year again, but I wanted to also go through that process because it's something that I know a lot of people would find interesting.
Yeah, so we sold the business in 2017. We actually were trying to buy Sports Insights. So the genesis of all this happening was we really wanted to get into sports betting in like 2016, 2017, Bales and I, from the FantasyLabs perspective. And we had the same engineers at Sports Insights, which was Dan's company, that we had at FantasyLabs, who said, hey, we have this great idea. Let's put these together. We'll blow it out of the park. There's a lot of synergies that we already have, already people working on both projects. And we made Dan, I thought, a pretty reasonable offer. And of course, he was going to be incented because now, basically he's converting, his equity into something else he has a big amount of equity into. So he would just have all this one big piece. And it looked like we were going to get that over the finish line. And then the Churning Group came in and offered like 2-3 times what we offered for Sports Insights to Dan. And Dan, of course, was like, oh, I really want to make sure we're all aligned. Like, I don't want to just sell this. Like, he was very interested in the deal, but he wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of at FantasyLabs too. And that led to us meeting with the Churning Group. And basically we came to kind of a deal that was mostly an acqui-hire. It's like a half cash, half equity deal with the Churning Group, which became the Action Network. So it's interesting how it played out. Obviously, the PASPA stuff and everything, I don't think it was the best time for us to sell, but at the same time, Churning had a lot of good foresight, and we were fortunate to work with some great people at the Action Network.
So they rolled up FantasyLabs, Sports Insight, and saying one other company. Correct?
The Action app.
And the Action
Yep.
app. Okay.
So that's Brian Mead. And Brian Mead, he started Sportacular, the Yahoo sports app, which I loved. And that was a big selling point to me. It was like, that was my favorite sports app at the time. And I liked the Action app. And I'm like, oh, perfect. We're going to have, the app, we have the sports betting side, and we have the DFS side. Like, we're in a really good position to capitalize on kind of what we see coming in the next 4 to 5 years.
Yahoo Sportacular was I know this is a slight to Rob.
Don't say this.
On the Score.
Brian Mead was like my direct competitor for I was the product manager for the Score for 4 or 5 years. And when I left the Score, I actually met Brian. I talked to him. And when Action was like in beta, I was, I want to say consulting with him, but he gave me a look at what you guys were building. It was pretty cool at the time. So, but it was headed in
better though. It was better.
Sportacular?
Yeah, man. I had a buddy. My buddy.
I didn't use the Score, and I think the Score app is so good. By the way, because we were fortunate to be able to bet on the Score in Colorado here in 2020 and 2021. And to me, you can say there's a lot of things the Score has done well. There's a lot of things maybe they could have done better, but the user experience on the Score app from a betting perspective was off the charts. And I actually started sweating games on the Score, as well as a little bit on Action Network at the time. But I was really impressed with how good that experience was. And I didn't know about the Score back in 2013, 14, 15. I don't even know when it started. It's pretty old, right?
Oh, well, so the Score is very old. It started as a TV company at first, and then expanded into digital. And I joined the digital team probably around 2011, which was it was in its infancy. Score Mobile for BlackBerry only. Used to remember when we would get customer support emails from Steve Eiserman, and I would say everyone was using the Score. It was crazy at that time, and had a blast. But yeah, the evolution of that was great. Sportacular though, internally with the Score was there was a huge rivalry, because this was head to head in North America.
1A, 1B, best apps, right?
So I got to start first off. Peter mentioned sweating his bets on the Score app. you got to split your bets on betstamp. Way better right now. We've completely revolutionized the game on that. It literally will.
Love it.
It's going to auto grade. You know, when you got LeBron over on 3-pointers, he hits that last 3, you're getting that notification. It's grading. Like there's none of this, oh, got to wait till the end of the game. Anyways, and we handle stat corrections. Don't worry. We'll get it sorted out.
I've been getting the corrections. It's good.
When you get scum though on a correction that you thought was a win.
But yeah, that's a painful experience. That's one of those like bet regraded and it turns into a loss at a half point. That's when you want to throw the phone through the wall.
Good.
Yeah.
But my Yahoo Sportacular stories, like for all my friends who are listening, you'll know exactly who it is. But we have one buddy who like is just the guy who tries out every new tech app and everything. He's always messaging the group chat, and literally at that time for sure, he was messaging like, oh, try this app. Like this app is better than this. He was always the guy who's like, we got to get on this new chat app. We got to get on this, everything. And one day I vividly remember him writing in and saying, guys, Yahoo Sportacular is way better than the Score. And we were all using the Score. We laughed at him for like a week straight about how like, what a loser. Like he's going to say Yahoo. Like we were all like Yahoo Fantasy Sports was like something we didn't like. We played on ESPN. I tried it out, Yahoo Sportacular, and it is one of the only this guy hits like 10% on new apps. But boy, was this one right? Like I actually switched over to Yahoo Sportacular full time after that.
What platform were you on? Android, iOS,
I was
BlackBerry,
on iPhone.
Why? Wasn't my team.
He was on Android. Okay, good. I'm glad I wasn't a direct split. But the reason I liked it is because it was just a cleaner look and it was a little bit faster. And the Score bet, I didn't like it when they started putting in like too many news feeds. It's probably you. They started putting in all these articles and news feeds. I'm like, guys, I don't want to read the articles on the Score.
Yeah.
I'm only looking for the scores. That's why I'm coming to the Score. And you know what I don't need on my Scores app? A Discover feed, Discover page.
Do you think I would be, you know me, sorry to hijack this interview, Peter, but you know me. You think I'm the guy that would replace the Scores immediately with content? That's not what I...
At one point, they put the feed as the main page.
Yeah. That
you only got when you logged into the Score. It'd pop up feed only.
My feed.
Eventually now, then they switched it where like it just goes to the last one that you had open. But for a while, it was like, I got to go I got to go to the articles page every time I open the Scores app. And you're opening that app frequently during the day, if you're a bettor. Yep. Anyways, sorry, Pete. Yeah, derail the conversation.
No. I love this. I've nerded out on these apps so much. I think the difference in UI and UX and those were the two best for sure. It's really important, and a lot of enterprise value has been created from both of those. So it's fun that we were all there for those early days and talking about it. And it's exciting to think about what everything's going to look like going forward. I mean, you guys are innovating and crushing at betstamp. It's great.
Did you ever use Flash Score, Peter?
No.
Flash Score would be lots of tennis bettors or soccer bettors.
So Flash Score Absolute is the most garbage UI. It's riddled with ads. It sucks, but they have the fastest scores for some sports. And like if you're just that's why you're saying like the smallest improvement in UI UX is there. But then occasionally there's a subset of people, if you're betting or trying to live bet back in the day, which I was, you would need to use Flash Score. And this thing was like virus back in the day, and it ended up that was like a screen for me all the time. I had to have a Flash Score up, and it'd pop up like all the time, like closing. It was ridiculous. But anyways, I figured that would have been funny if you used that back in the day too. Rob, have you?
Yeah, I know. Flash Score I would use to check soccer scores back in the day.
Okay,
who disrupted that space? Who won? Who's the winner now in that space?
That's a good question.
Or for those things.
I honestly, I think the Score bet just sped up enough that it's now fast enough where it's like roughly equivalent. I don't know if there's like a winner now. If you're live betting, if you're looking for the absolute fastest scores right now, I personally use Bet365 live tool. So you go to, and it is going to be the fastest for the American sports right now. So you go bet live betting, basketball, you're going to get, if you want the absolute fastest, you look at the odds move first, and then you can tell if a bucket was scored, but you won't actually know if it was like a 3 or 2 or a foul, something like that. But if you're watching the game on like national direct cable, it's about like a 7 to 10 second head start in terms of the odds. And then like 5 seconds quicker, you'll get the actual score update. And I was at a Raptors game last month with the 365 app open, and they must, I don't know what they do. They must have someone at the stadium there. We talked about it, but like as soon as that ball goes in, it flips to 2. Like it's crazy. It flips to 2 points. It's nuts, Peter. You should try it.
That's a great mode.
Yeah.
That's a great vote for Bet365, and part of the reason they're probably doing so well. I mean, that's a big data and information and speed is so critical for the picks and shovels businesses, but especially the operators. So kudos to Bet365. That's awesome to hear.
Okay, so what else? What else we got here? So you're obviously involved in a bunch of different projects. A lot of them we've talked about on the show, had different members on. One of them that is directly in sports betting and within our community is Unabated. So we know you're a partner there. Do you want to describe your involvement and kind of what you see on that product, and then establish the run as well?
Yeah, Unabated. I think we have a lot of mutual friends and a lot of cross pollination and content, which is a lot of fun. The big thing that we're focused on there is providing the best tools and odds for, more serious bettors at this time, which I think is a strength, but also a weakness for the business. I think long term, obviously we're hoping to reach more people. But yeah, it's a really fun project. We're building a lot of really interesting tools. We had the whole teaser thing. I don't know if you guys talked about the teaser tool. And that's the challenge, like building really cool, innovative, helpful products in sports betting is challenging. So I think we're offering a ton of alpha currently, and we just need to figure out kind of what the long term looks like. Part of my big view is that there's going to be more peer-to-peer games. So I'm really excited about building tools for like Survivor and Pick'em. And I really like the sports betting championship. And I hope we see more and more stuff like that, because I think you can build more sustainable products. But for now, a big focus of ours is just making sure we have really good data and odds for professional bettors. And I think that's something that we're going to continue to reinvest in 2023.
Makes a lot of sense. So walk us through a typical day or even a week for you right now, Peter, because you're involved in a lot of different things, right? I did the intro up off the top. You'll have Lucky Trader on top of that. Like, you have a lot of projects on the go at once. So how do you divide your time on a daily basis? Like, what's your involvement in each one of these companies? I'm just very interested in terms of a breakdown of your time allocation and how you keep basically managing all these different things, because me and Johnny can speak from experience. I think like a couple things on the go for us and we want to like pull our hair out. So basically, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to get a lot better at just in general. A big part of my foundation daily is going to the gym with my friends. That's like how I'd like to start my day. And I think it's really, really important to just have time to invest in yourself. So I really try to make that a priority 4 or 5 days a week and just get that camaraderie, competitiveness, and then also working out. So that's a foundation. On the back half, the other thing that's super important is family. So I really try to make a point to be with my daughter and wife for like dinners and kind of the bedtime routine for Gracie. And then in the middle, I'm trying to do as much as I can to hustle with all these different ventures. So there's calls and there's times you want to do content, and then there's, trying to put things together. I'm really trying to figure out how I can add the most value to each of these things. And that's ultimately going to be the most important thing from like a business perspective in my life. So the great scenarios are when you can create like win-wins. Like the Solver was a really exciting project that came to fruition this year. And obviously ETR is involved in that. And then, like right now at Unabated, I think we're kind of at an inflection point from just products and trying to figure out how to market the business better. So, spending a lot of time on that as well. So each week is different. Today, I was fortunate to go skiing with one of the founders of FantasyLabs, who's now working at Unabated, Kevin, one of the engineers. So that was a great day. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Actually, fed 2 birds.
Fed 2 birds with 1 scone. We don't want PETA after us.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay, I use it.
No,
like another great thing would be like
circles off inside joke. Sorry, Peter.
Okay. Oh, it's great. Like playing golf with Johnny, like when he was out here in Denver, like those are like my favorite things. Like we get to play golf in Vegas. Like I want quality time with people I respect that can add value in mutually beneficial ways. And that's kind of the main thing I'm trying to figure out with these things. And it's like great. Like another example would be like, ETR and Underdog. Like that's a great partnership where ETR has this great fantasy audience. Obviously you can bring them over to Underdog where they're offering all these fantasy products. Like that's been a really good marriage. So just trying to find win-wins like that and really trying to be as proactive and helpful as I can from a fundraising and product side as well.
Where do you think, this is a very personal question, but where do you think you provide the most value in terms of, provide the most value to these companies? Do you think it's your reputation in the space, your experiences in the space? I'm just curious, like, you kind of said, basically you want to provide value in everything that you're working on. What do you think is your best quality that you bring to all these projects that you're working on or a part of?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things I could do a lot better at. I could be a better executor. I think that in certain ways I could provide like more direct value with like Captain Jack does a great job for community. I want to do stuff a little bit like that better. I think my strength is more on like putting the pieces together and the high level stuff. And part of that comes with like fundraising and just making deals happen. So that's probably where I get the most enjoyment, where I think I'm adding value. I think the reputational stuff certainly can be additive. It's something I want to continue to get better at as well. But yeah, I think especially relationships over time, like one thing that's really important to me that I think is important for anyone who's trying to build businesses, partnerships, et cetera, is like trying to provide value and see things from the other person's point of view or the other company's point of view. So that's something that I really take pride in, is like, okay, how can we create a win-win here? What's important for the other side? How can there be like a 1 + 1 = 3 situation? That is the most satisfying and exciting thing to me. And I'm hoping to do more of that in 2023.
What is the most exciting thing that you're working on right now?
Oh, we put him on the spot big time.
Wow, that's a really good one. We have a really cool value feed, I think, coming at Unabated that I'm super stoked about. There's some products there. I think Underdog has some amazing products coming out this year. The growth of Underdog and Prize Picks has been incredible. So that's been really fun to see. And then, yeah, I mean, probably the most, I don't know if it's successful, but I think there's a lot of improvements that we can make at ETR, even though I think they did an amazing job last year. So some combination of those three things would be my answer. And sorry to hedge my bets so much there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are like, and all different things, like a really cool tool. I'm excited about the content side of things with ETR. And then from an operator perspective, I just think what Underdog's doing is awesome.
Well, okay, let's stick with that for a second.
Wait,
here.
You made a good choice, by the way, right? So no one can get offended. You can just say this. Listen, I'm on a sports betting podcast. These guys reach a sports betting audience. I got to plug Unabated and Underdog and call it a day. So you hedge both, and I agree with you. I like what Unabated is doing. Underdog obviously just going live in Ohio. They got the temp license in Colorado, probably a few more states. But for those of you unfamiliar, if you're in a variety of U.S. states that are unrestricted, you could play at Underdog on like their kind of fantasy pick'em challenge. And then I believe they are launching now in the regulated sportsbook space. We have a traditional book. I mean, if you want to talk a little bit more about that, Underdog, our listeners are right up that alley.
Yeah, I mean, Underdog's doing so many. Have you guys tried the best ball products?
They took them out of Ontario, so we can't personally play, which is tough. But,
so, yeah, it's hard to, and I get it. When you can't play, like I don't know if I can't do it, like or experience myself, it's very hard for me to like get into it or talk about it. But the playoff best ball, like knowing your guys' background, you guys would crush it. It's so much fun. It's a DFS contest, or essentially a DFS contest, where it takes your best players every week and just automatically you play them. And then with the playoffs, it starts in, some of the contests start in the wild card round, some of the contests start in the divisional round. So you have to have players that do well every week. But it becomes like a futures bet as well, because, now, like you could have been all over the Cowboys or whoever else who had a great wildcard week, but now are out and they're not going to give you any points in the conference championships and the Super Bowl. And the majority of the money is paid out to the Super Bowl winner. So it's like a really interesting game theory where you're like trying to draft good fantasy players, but guys that can make the Super Bowl. And especially in the wild card round, it's like really tough to like kind of figure out what to do, because the Eagles and Chiefs obviously likely to make the Super Bowl, but they don't give you any points in that first week where you have to like win in advance. So I love that product. I love the season long stuff. And then it's crazy. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective on like Prize Picks and Underdog, like the growth of those pick'em games. I mean, it's just off the charts how much those are growing. Are you guys playing, doing content around them? What are your guys' thoughts?
I'll answer it first right now. I will say, because we do be honest with the listeners here at Circles Off, Underdog and Prize Picks, you are able to beat them. You can win on those sites, absolutely. However, it is much easier to win on traditional sportsbook because they don't. The payout process there is a little bit different than what you're probably used to in a traditional sportsbook, in that they don't return the risk amount in the payout. So it looks like you're getting a much bigger payout than you actually are. So first and foremost that. However, the thing with Underdog and Prize Picks is they're so fun. You can just, it's basically prop parlays is what it is. It's like a 5-team prop parlay.
Way more hold. I would love to dig into that too, by the way, because it's like what you said is 100% true.
I just want to be honest with the customers, with like the customers of their site, for example. Like if you are playing there, it's going to be fun. There's more options. There's definitely a lot more you can do, and it's simpler of a game for sure. However, if you're looking to make money, you're going to want to stick traditional sportsbook, and you can do those same prop parlays and get a higher payout. You just will have to mix them and match them from different games as opposed to the same game. And if you're doing same game, you can do same game parlays. But most books will not allow multi same game parlays. There's one that does now. But anyways, that's my rant. That's what I think about them. I like the games. I can't play them myself because they're currently banned in Ontario, but would definitely be doing that if I was in a regulated state there. So what do you think, Peter? Or Rob?
So I was first introduced to Underdog by Peter at the Bookie Better Breakfast at Bet Bash 2, where he talked about it and said, check it out. And then I was doing a lot of research into it, and I'd heard of Prize Picks before. I think this is just like the natural evolution of the betting space, where like people are kind of sick and tired of like just the basic traditional type of sports betting, and they're looking to vary it up a little bit. This appeals to the vast majority of the population. So I'm not surprised when I see these companies starting to take off now, because people do like the element of parlays. It creates more excitement. The element of a bigger payout creates more excitement. Not having to just pick the side and total on a game and being able to use player props and stuff like that creates more excitement. So to me, this is like the natural evolution. I wish I had known about this a long time ago, Peter, because I probably would have been on board with a product like this. But I think it's cool. Honestly, I do. I remember like my first experiences playing DFS, where it created like this sense of camaraderie amongst our friends and our groups, where we were just talking about stuff every day. Like, what players are you playing tonight? What are you doing this tonight? And I think that Prize Picks and Underdog, what they've done well is created a sense of community as well, where people are sharing their lineups, showing other people what they're doing. I can see why it's booming. For a bettor like me, I don't really have the appetite for that personally, but I'm probably in the vast minority in the style that I like to bet. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I haven't dug too deep into the products or anything like that in terms of being able to play them because of geolocation restrictions. But I mean, I can see the appeal for the mass population.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. It's super interesting. I do agree that that's where things are going. And I think a lot of this stuff makes a ton of sense. I think the one thing they really got right is, in general, people love these parlays and lottery type payouts. And I think that's something that's really critical going forward. And hopefully there'll be less and less hold in a lot of these markets. And I think that's one fair criticism of these, of Prize Picks and Underdog is, the holds are higher. And what you see is, a higher percentage of people, are going to lose. I don't think they're losing. I mean, anyone can lose a lot of money anywhere, but like broadly they're higher holds, but it's lower stakes than I think a lot of people like. There's a lot more like people who are doing $5 on like a 5-leg player parlay versus like the person who's betting the same, like a similar type of person might bet $100 on just like a prop bet, right? That being said, what's really interesting is like the 0.1 percentile are crushing these sites because they're currently not limiting people. So like I know for a fact that there's people are making like 6-7 figures on these things, even though there's so much hold. There's all these correlations and there's things that they can do. And like, WNBA, for instance, those lines are not nearly as efficient as the NFL pick'em parlays that they have or pick'em products that they have. So it's really interesting when you just start like looking at the opportunities. Like there's definitely some people who are crushing them. So yeah, it's like on this extreme end, if that was like your main focus, you could do really well. And then I think it is good for like the super casual person who wants like $5 of entertainment that night. Everyone
has different motivations when they bet. Plain and simple. What my motivations are might not be the motivation of all my friends who are looking to just entice their increase their sports betting experience, like in terms of entertainment on a nightly basis. And I think this product just really lends itself to doing that. That's not to say that you can't get entertainment out of a traditional sports book. You get entertainment in whatever way you want, but I understand the appeal to it.
I'm not trying to like down. Oh, first off, one thing before I forget, Underdog NBA, the Twitter account.
Oh yeah.
So
It's our FantasyLabs guys.
It's Justin Fan, right? So
yeah, it's the same. We did that with the FantasyLabs NBA.
You
remember?
guys had a FantasyLabs NBA. So essentially, what I was going to say is, listen, it's no longer an edge right now. For the most part, it's completely dried up. You're not going to be able to beat the Steam unless you have like really slow moving PPH or something like that. But realistically, last year you were able to get a significant amount of CLV just turning tweet notifications on for Underdog NBA, and the year prior FantasyLabs NBA, and then legitimately just Steam chase when a guy got out, like, Dame Lillard ruled out, LeBron ruled out, someone ruled in, and beat in, and just hit that side or the other side subsequent to the news. Big edge. Great product that you guys made. But again, like anything, edge dries up. And Rob and I, we were there and saw, like, I've specifically seen a sportsbook at a reputable big sportsbook trading, like a trader at the sportsbook with 4 screens, and one of his screens was a tweet deck, and one of his tweet decks was just Underdog NBA. So
of course,
eventually it comes to the point where the edges go away.
It's the hard part about betting, right? Like the teaser tool is a great product, but then so an operator starts looking at it, and that's something that I think is really challenging and interesting about the sports betting space. So like, yeah, always open to ideas. And I know you guys are building a lot of really cool stuff. It's just like, that to me is like one of the really, you want to provide value, but like at the same time, you have to be really thoughtful about how you provide it, because edges inevitably go away.
I wonder what if the success in prospects and Underdog is large. Those companies are both crushing it, but I wonder if, like, you would probably know the splits a little better. How much of that action comes in like regulated versus unregulated states for traditional gambling? Because right now those companies have kind of work around, call it, where it's technically not gambling, so they can operate in different states. And because of that, you have like fantasy players and people who might be in like Florida, for example, and are able to play there, but can't actually bet on like DraftKings, FanDuel, or MGM, Caesars. Any thoughts on that, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. I mean, it's really cool. These are fantasy products, and I think that hopefully there's even more evolution in like predicting players, and that element of like turning it into a fantasy game, I think, is really important. And I hope we can to see more iterations on that, because yeah, it is a huge arbitrage, I guess. Maybe that's not the right word, but like from an operator perspective, it's like, yeah, you, like FanDuel and DraftKings having a DFS product was a huge customer acquisition edge over the traditional books when it comes to acquiring customers in states where they have explicitly legal fantasy bills, but they don't have the sports betting regulation yet. So my goal, and what I hope long-term happens, and I think most of the industry hopes happens, is that we just see legal sports speculation across betting, fantasy, whatever, across the states. And hopefully that comes sooner rather than later. But obviously it's a process, and it's a state-by-state thing at this point in time.
Do you see yourself continuing to like expand your footprint into other sports betting companies, whether it's the fantasy space, betting itself, or something unique? Or is this like, you got what you got now, enough on your plate? I'm just curious, are you actively like looking for other opportunities that are out there in the space? What goes on in terms of your like personal portfolio?
Yeah, I definitely am still interested from an investing perspective. I definitely am. I think one thing I'm really cognizant of going forward is just like being thoughtful with my time and not being oversubscribed. I want to be able to provide value, and I definitely am limited on time. So from a sweat equity perspective, definitely have the plate full, but still interested in investing. Obviously, it's a little bit different macro, and I think one mistake I made as just from an investing standpoint, as an investor, was over allocated during the boom of 2020, 2021 into the early part of 2022. So going to be more selective than I've been in the past, maybe, but still super interested in the space, especially if I can be a value add. So I have some other investments that are in the space I think are really cool. Shout out to the Better Pool guys that have runyourpool.com and myopsfootballpool.com. I think that's a really cool space. And there's some others that I think are really interesting, but yeah, from a time perspective, it's really hard to do a lot of things well. And I think oftentimes the best results come from when you're just like hyper focused on one thing.
Is there anything that piques your interest outside of sports or crypto?
I've tried that big time. I'm really interested. One of my favorite deals is a climate company that makes motors. It's called Turntide Technologies. They're pretty big. They almost went public in 2021. Amazon, Bill Gates, a lot of big names and big companies are behind them. Basically, they make more efficient motors down to like for like refrigerators, HVACs, air conditioning units. They basically took kind of some of the similar technology in motors for nuclear power plants, which is like a huge amount of power. And we're able to make motors like 50% more efficient, which is a huge thing for climate change, because a lot of kind of what's going on from an energy perspective is just wasted energy. Mm-hmm. So I've played in a lot of things like that. I've looked into other tech companies. Candidly, I haven't had as much success outside of sports and crypto. And I think that's a good lesson for anyone listening. Just like broadly, you're going to have the most alpha in your own lane. And I think I was a bit arrogant to think that I would have the same investing success in areas I didn't know as well. But I'm still super interested in that. And I think one challenge in the betting world is like, I really hope in my life that I can have a big impact and a positive impact on society. And I do think that there is a really positive impact that we have in betting. I think it's the best entertainment in the world, and we're enhancing great entertainment. But I would love to do something that has like a different type of positive impact one day. So I'm still interested. I got humbled in the last couple of years trying to do way too much. And now I'm just really trying to, be strictly focused on these sports businesses. A big part of my ethos is just trying to be successful. So I want to make those wins, and then we'll see what life brings down the road.
Do you invest in stocks at all, or stonks? As the kids call them nowadays.
Yeah, that's how I spend part of my day as well. Is I like at night I'm listening to mostly finance podcasts, and I was a stockbroker for a year and a half. So I got like my Series 7, 63. And my dad is retired and is like obsessed with that stuff. I don't trade very often. I hold like 20 stocks and have positions. But I really spend a lot of time thinking about it. One thing that might be applicable is the big mistake I made from the last couple of years was I kind of thought of all my investments as like in terms of buckets. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have my money in crypto. I'm going to have my money in private investments. I'm going to have some money in stocks. I'm going to have some money in real estate. And I evaluated each of those buckets as if I was like a young risk-on person instead of thinking about the whole thing holistically.
Right.
So my big mistake and where, I got hurt was I probably had too much money in the stock market relative to my overall portfolio when I was so risk-on everywhere else. Startup founder with a lot of illiquid private companies, crypto. Like, why do I need more? Like, even though it's less risky than those, why do I need so much exposure in stocks when if like the macro is good, I'm going to do well. So I've gotten more defensive. I'm really interested in like the short-term opportunities, especially in like CDs, treasuries, things of that nature. So I'm a bit more defensive than I've ever been, but I think from a holistic perspective, it makes sense given I'm so risk on everywhere else.
Makes sense. Just another form of bankroll management when you think about it. And I don't think anyone really gets that right the first time regardless. So at least you're open about it.
And it works for so long. Like, when I first came into money, 2011, 12, 13, 14, I would just put in the stock market and it's gone nothing but straight up. And of course, like, that was just the hubris. It's like, oh, everything's gone up. I'm investing. I'm a young person. Like, this is all going to work out. And like, yeah, I was over invested for sure at the end of 2021.
Did you buy GameStop?
No. So I never have done that stuff. Like, I own boring stuff. Like, my biggest positions are like Costco. I guess that like Amazon's a big tech stock, but like I own gold. Like, would people think that like I'm a young guy owning gold as like a 34-year-old is probably pretty boomer, but yeah, like I own.
Sorry, go ahead.
I own uranium. I'm really interested in nuclear power. Walmart. Like, I have some non-sexy stocks that I'm interested in.
All right. Well, listen, this is in no way financial advice, nor would I ever be qualified to give you financial advice. Take a look at keg.un, keg.un. We're just another inside joke. This is for those listening. Again, absolutely not financial advice. This is the royalty fund for the Keg, Rob and I's favorite restaurant here in Ontario.
So did you guys day trade during COVID? Because I got super into I was not day trading, but I've been a long-term buy and hold guy broadly. But during COVID, I was like watching Barstool and watching all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Prez was hilarious. Like I was pretty interested in just like trying to figure out what's going on in the world. I didn't trade a lot, but I traded way more than I ever have during that time.
I didn't. I hate stocks personally. Mainly just because like I know roughly what it takes to beat one market in sports betting and how difficult it is and how much time and effort and energy and know-how you need to be. And then I also know how like deep the spectrum goes. And then when it comes to like the stock market, personally, I don't feel like I have an edge, and I don't feel I'll ever be able to have an edge, nor am I even close So yes, you can buy and hold and just invest in the whole market, but I'm definitely not a whole like picker, and I'm definitely not a day trader. But I'll let Rob answer, and then I'll tell you what I did do during the pandemic.
So I did trade a lot of crypto during the pandemic.
Oh baby,
which honestly went really well. I can't say I really had an edge there or not, but it was pretty successful. I was trading on leverage, sometimes as high as like 10 times.
Give me your best crypto story. I love this.
I honestly don't have good ones. Like I do not have good crypto story. I guess the best crypto story was somebody telling me to buy Ripple a long time ago and me telling them about how much they're an idiot and it's like not, it's not decentralized and so on. This is like a bullshit crypto and whatever and so on and so forth. And that person's like now retired. Like just they like to rub it in my face every now and then. But I don't have good crypto stories because for the most part, I'm very I'll get really into it for like 3 or 4 weeks, right? Where it just consumes everything. I can't even go to sleep at night without waking up and checking my phone every 2 hours to see what prices are, especially when you're trading on leverage and you have something open overnight. There'd be times where I'm awake for like 48 hours straight. I'm wired. And then it just get the burnout. And I'm like, why do I do this to myself? And I become very disinterested in crypto. So I'm not a guy that has great stories. I don't. Like I've had some swings, but I've had so many of them that I can't even recall them. It's like being a poker player, right? With the bad beats and your big wins. And it's like, I don't remember the worst beat of my life. I don't remember my biggest win in poker. Like I don't remember any of that. It's just all a blur because I go so hard at it at once that like I then just distance myself from it, if that makes sense.
Totally. And it's important to be able to forget and like handle that emotion. I think it's very applicable in sports betting. I mean, obviously tilting and like making emotional decisions and any of these things is going to get you killed. And Johnny, I couldn't agree more. I don't necessarily think I have an edge. I certainly don't think I have an edge like in trading stocks and day trading. I think that's like, especially now, like you need like a lot of assistance from computers, and it'll be interesting to see what AI does there. But like, yeah, my broad view is if you're young and you can find companies and you do a lot of work on like very specific companies, you might be able to have an edge. Especially, it is a way more efficient market than even sports betting, but it's a lot easier to win when you have less money. It's way harder. Like it's way easier to have like 30% returns if you're managing $1 million than if you're managing $1 billion, for example. Yep. So like, I'm curious and like I probably am not winning, but I'm competitive and hopefully one day can feel confident I might have some alpha.
So I feel like, well, first off, you teased your greatest crypto stories, so we got to hear those before we get too far. Like I don't see how we don't ask you now. What's your best crypto story then?
My favorite crypto story is probably from CryptoPunks. The first CryptoPunk I bought in early 2021. Later I bought that one and then I flipped a couple like floors up to my profile picture, and that profile picture I bought in the parking lot of the hospital before my daughter was born. So that was a cool story. And then the best financial win was the first CryptoPunk I bought for 21 ETH or something, which was like 36K at the time, and sold it near the top in August of 21 for 288 ETH, of basically $1 million. So that was pretty wild to see some pixels basically be $1 million P&L or profit in a year's time. Taxes sucked, but
quick come up.
If I've
had other bad losses too. I invested a ton, like Bales and I invested in like Goons of Patroon. I probably lost like 30, 40 ETH. I lost money on Zed, which I thought was so cool, the virtual horse racing. Yeah. Like my overall P&L in crypto from an NFT trading perspective is not like amazing. I did really well with punks and like kind of shitty with everything else.
Oh, that's like literally every industry though. You're like, oh, I did well with Bitcoin and got slaughtered on the alts. Like, and that's kind of how it is, you know?
If we're including NFT stories, Johnny has seen this video. I've never shared it publicly before, but I did record my wife's face the first time I told her that I bought a CryptoPunk. And she was like trying to figure out what this was. And she saw the dollar amount next to it, like the conversion from ETH to US dollars. Yeah. And she saw what it was. And she was not processing this.
Dude, that's the best video I've seen. She's like on the video, just for the listeners here. She's like, so you just bought this for this much money. And it was a lot, right? And she's like, and this sold previously 6 months ago for $20. We're just like,
I bought a punk for 47,000 that had sold. The previous sale was $20. So
I love that so much.
Yes.
And then he's like, and then Rob's just in the video. He's like, "This is our retirement, babe." And she's like, "What? Are you serious?" And
she was very unhappy that day.
She's like, "I'm calling Tyler right now." I don't even know who that is, but
It's one of her friends to tell her about how ridiculous of a story this is and how much. But
that was jokes.
It worked out.
What I did, so I wanted to tell this quick. Well, what I did during the pandemic, which was related to stocks, was one of the larger sports books. I don't really want to say the name, but it's like the second sharpest and not a sponsor of the podcast. And then, so they were hanging lines when basically what they did was they were hanging lines on like, what will the Dow close the day at? And then what will S&P 500 close the day at? And they're taking 1K limits. Obviously, they allow rebet. So pretty much, they'd move them, but also they wouldn't really move them as much. And essentially, what I did was just like, myself as well as my partner, we'd basically like model out the volatility on how it would work with that kind of stuff. And then like, hey, what is this? Like, where can we find an edge here? Like the volatility from now until the end of the day. And we ended up, it's never going to come back. So I don't mind giving this out. But basically, we came out with like some rough model that showed that like the volatility from like an hour in to close is super high. So they were just pricing it based on the current and then they'd take action and flip. But you could get some stuff at like plus 380, plus 400, plus 700 to go up above like a certain alt. And then they were hitting like every 3 days because like the volatility at the end was so crazy. So we ended up cleaning up on that. And that was my form of stock trading.
They didn't price it with the right distribution.
Not
basically.
even close.
Yeah.
And also it was crazy. Like these things were up and then we'd have like, I'm not a politics guy at all. And we'd put on like, we'd be like, "Oh, Trump's about to speak. Get it on the TV." Like, because like it's impacting
the markets. Yeah.
It was massive.
Yep.
The coolest crypto story ever that was like a crypto prediction market was, did you guys see all the stuff about Trump after he had lost, right? Technically, like Biden was going in. There was a huge market where you could bet if Trump was going to be president like a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. And there's one person who provided like tens of millions of dollars of liquidity on one of these markets. So you could go out and basically say, "I don't think Trump's going to be president. I'm willing to risk 95 cents to win 5 cents," or whatever. I don't remember the exact ratio. I mean, they changed obviously over time, but that was like a crazy market for a stretch of time.
That was on Betfair, right?
Yeah.
Or
there was Betfair, and then Polymarket was the huge one. Where there was like this massive whale.
I remember hearing about that, which was like the election was over, but yeah, people still thought there was a chance of an overturn.
Yeah,
I gotta read the sportsbook rules.
House rules.
The game's not played by a certain date. Yeah, house rules always. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
And that's what's interesting about the betting markets and some of these exchanges and different things. And obviously, there's different legalities wherever you are. So just do your own research on that. But like, those markets can be so much different than like other huge markets, which you assume are like way more efficient. So like your stock stuff, like that was probably easy to go out and find like good, not easy, but like you could find reliable data and like do the work and like actually realize like you have a real edge, like it's not just like a lot of speculation. Like you can actually quantify this stuff.
Yeah, no, like at one point we were doing it and then we're like, wait, like we're getting like plus 800 and this is like roughly 50-50. Like this is hitting like every other day.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The things we did to bet during COVID, man. I mean, I remember betting on Bales with the push-up competition as well.
That was a good one.
Kanish, who couldn't do like 150 push-ups in 15 minutes. But I remember messaging.
Kanish was on the wrong side of that one.
Oh, Kanish got this. It was actually he's tried to get those videos removed from the internet.
Wait, we're not talking about the Bales bet here. We're talking about the Kanish bet.
Okay, so
did you know about that?
Oh no, I'm talking about the Bales thing, but okay. I think I heard about this, but tell the story.
So Bales did the bet where he did whatever
2,400 push-ups in
a certain amount of hours.
12 hours.
He won, so he won the bet, and then Joey Kanish posted a video. Good friend of the program, Joey Kanish, the Hammer HQ, hit the books HQ. Anyways, Kanish put out a video just like pumping out a couple like random shitty push-ups.
Horrible form.
And he's like, I can do whatever push-ups. And then someone challenged him if he could do 150 in 10 minutes. And then Dave Mason put out a line for it. And then
I love this.
And it was born. And he put out the line as like favored to not do it, but super badly mispriced. Kanish ended up ripping off like I think he ripped off 30 half-ass and then eked out another 15. Called it a day.
He was legitimately at the point of like muscle fatigue. Like he could not pump out another, even his shitty form push-ups, he could not pump out another one. Like he tried and his muscles just failed on him. Like he couldn't.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
if you go look at his Twitter mentions, anytime he gives out a pick and it wins, like there will still be someone in the mention saying like slowly getting back the money I lost in the push-up bet.
Oh, I love it. To me, that's another thing. Like, I really hope that there's more just like prop bets. And of course, it's really hard to have bets on those things. You need to have trustworthy people. You need to have real markets. But like, there's nothing better than a good prop bet. And there's nothing better than a physical prop bet, especially if it's a situation where someone can train for it. And like, it's a win-win regardless. Like, I did a pull-up competition versus Bales. I was getting like plus 20 or something like that. I lost, but I really won because I got like in way better shape. I did all the pull-ups. Like, and I'm not saying like, obviously it's things to lose, but like, I love prop bets like that.
Okay, so on this topic, I got to ask. We didn't put it in the notes. Apologies. The $1 billion flip. So it's a question that we've asked to a few guests. I think none more timely than to ask it to you right now. So essentially, here is the scenario: you're presented a coin, you flip it, you call it in the air. If you win, you get $1 billion. If you lose, you get 0. At what amount of money would you like accept to forego the opportunity to flip? So like, I don't want to flip, just pay me out, whatever, a certain amount. So obviously your expected value being 500 million on that flip. Go ahead.
I think the majority of people should probably take like $20 million or something guaranteed, or $10 million guaranteed, like something that just like is financial freedom for you and your family for the rest of your life. I think that's probably correct for almost everyone. For me, I'd probably take like 150 million, 100 million and not flip.
See, here's the question.
Because I don't see it. The distinction for me is like, for sure, like the only thing past like, let's say like 50 million or 100 million, like, yeah, it'd be fun to have like a couple cool houses and like maybe some more travel. Like a jet is like the main thing that you'd want.
This is Johnny's thing. It's got to.
This is why.
Like that's mainly the thing you'd want. So if I could just guarantee I had a private jet, and again, I know there's bad things. It's bad for the environment, but like from a freedom perspective, like which is like one of my top values. Like I just want to do what I want when I want with family, friends, etc. If you can just lock in a jet and $100 million plus, like your life's amazing. So like to me, the difference to like $1 billion, like I don't like. I wish I had an answer where I'd say, hey, I would flip up to 500 million because the chance at $1 billion, if I had $1 billion, I could make this change to the world. This would be the best thing for society. Like it'd be amazing if I could do that. But I don't think that I have that answer right now. I would take like.
This is so close to the answer that Johnny gave that I'm actually getting shivers from listening.
You got to listen to my answer from like a year ago. It's this.
I haven't never heard your answer for what it's
my answer is this: I really want a private jet, but if I flip and win the $1 billion, then I could do something that changes the world. So my answer is, in all likelihood, I'm flipping. But it's not a good EV move. It's a negative EV move. But the experience,
I don't think I'd flip it. 100 million, I don't think I could flip.
So
especially right now too. I'm about to have a second kid, and like I got like I feel like I'm very fortunate, and there's a lot of opportunity, and things can go relatively well. But like, man, to just like guarantee all of our family being totally set up, and like with $100 million, I definitely would have either access to a jet at all times or a jet. Like it'd be really hard to turn that down.
So yeah, fair enough. I feel like though, if you lost the million, like if you lost the flip, like it will put you in like I'm not saying you specifically, I'm saying in general, if someone lost the flip, it would put you into an emotional downswing spiral. So that's the only part I haven't factored in yet is like, can I overcome that'd be trauma? So hard. Can I overcome the trauma of losing that flip? But whatever.
Also, winning the flip for some people might be the worst thing that's ever happened to them. I mean, you guys have all seen this lottery stuff where like people like get depressed, they lose family, like crazy stuff happens to people who come into money that have no idea what to do with it. Like there's a huge downside to like getting a ton of money in certain ways. That's a small consideration. Obviously you want like
fair enough.
Obviously you want it, but I'm just saying like a lot of lottery winners end up having miserable lives.
So the question is though, it's like, what is the least amount you would actually accept? And the reason why I think 100 million is a bit of a weird answer is like 100 million can't be the least you will accept, because if you're willing to accept 100 million, then you're definitely willing to accept 99 million. You know what I mean? So there's like, there's no way you're like, no, I'm flipping if it's 99, I'll flip, but 100 I'll take, right? It's a weirdish number. So maybe your number is like enough to calculate that you can get the private jet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in theory I'd consider other numbers. Yeah, maybe like 99 I'd probably take. So yeah, I was just like off the cuff thinking about it, but yeah, for sure I wouldn't flip. I wouldn't not flip for like 10 million. And obviously you can't go buy insurance or do so. Like the flip
it's a hypothetical scenario.
It's a hypothetical. So like for like 5 million, I would definitely not do it. Like no chance at this point in time. Like zero. Like I would absolutely rather flip for it than take 5 million. 10 million, I feel like I would flip, but man, at the time it'd be hard. 50 million is probably a good question. Like, I feel like up until that point, I'd probably still want to flip for it. Because the cool thing is if you did win and you had $1 billion, I mean, you can make real meaningful change.
Agreed. The reason why this question came to be was really like the YouTuber Mr. Beast asked it on, he did like a series where he would ask people like, hey, do you want, he'd be like, yo, do you want $1,000 or do you want to flip for 10,000? And like everyone was taking the 1,000, and it kind of put it into perspective for me of like, okay, obviously in that scenario, it's like, hey, I'm not going to take $1,000. Like I'll flip for the 10K. And then you like scale it up and you're like, all right, 10K or 100K. You're like, well, I'm going to flip for the 100K. And then you keep scaling up. And then I feel like the billion is the first one where it's like, would you take the 100 million? Or would you flip for $1 billion? And that, if the question was phrased like that, I think it's even more of a crazy one where it's like, damn, like at the previous version, like 1 million, I'm not going to take. I'd rather flip for 100, right? Like I think you'd agree, given that you said you wouldn't flip for 5, you'd flip instead of 5. So it's crazy, but puts it into perspective on like also how fortunate that we are. That I guess we are in a spot that we don't need to worry about like a day-to-day where the next meal is coming from, and a lot of people do, but it's just crazy in terms of mindset, like how that works.
If your net worth is 0 and your earning potential is, let's say, like 65 grand a year or something like that, like what's the appropriate number where they shouldn't flip? And it's probably really low, like $500,000 or $1 million.
Even 100 grand.
Yeah, maybe even 100 grand. I don't know.
Well, look at the guy this week who won that 72K parlay. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about.
The first hitter?
Or anytime touchdown.
Did
or
I
whatever.
not give you Dalton Schultz?
It was first TD.
It was
Did
first
I not
TD.
give you
Yeah,
Dalton
you
Schultz
Dalton
first hitter?
Schultz.
Did I not also give you who was that? Who was the other one I gave you in the Eagles game?
Oh yeah, we got Dallas Goedert.
Gave him 2 first hitters this weekend, by the way, Peter. But it's all good.
He also ran.
Baby, you guys are hot.
He ran into the studio about 5 minutes before the start of the Cowboys 49ers game, asking me if I wanted to bet Brett Maher not to miss an extra point at minus 300 with him. He conveniently left that part out of the story. He missed his first extra point. Yeah.
With the logic of, by the way, I'm projecting him to attempt under 2 extra points. And he did, but obviously missed it. Anyways, sorry, what were we about to ask?
The guy that won the 72K parlay, right? And he posted on Twitter a picture of it, and he said life-changing money, right? And immediately Twitter, the most toxic of platforms ever, bunch of people are like, what are you talking about? This isn't life-changing money, and this isn't constitute life-changing money. He's like, well, guess what? I had like 100K of student debt. I can now pay off 3/4 of it. To me, that's changing my life considerably. And like, to each their own, right? In terms of what you evaluate as life-changing money. It's kind of just like a tangent, but it popped into my head because I did see that today. I'm like, this poor guy has to defend himself for...
So disrespectful.
Of course.
A couple $100 could be massive.
Too, I think.
$5 to win, or $4 to win 72K, something like that, yeah.
Some people can't afford to put their next meal. Their debt is swallowing them, and like it's just so disrespectful. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of value in Twitter, but there's, especially gambling Twitter, there's just a lot of people that I wish they would take a more positive side of things, but that probably won't happen.
Well, let's keep it there for a second, because I've been involved in gambling Twitter since 2010, and then I kind of got involved in DFS Twitter for a bit as well. And forever, there's been like this clash and this rivalry and like this hostility. Empire Maker versus Rufus comes to mind right away when they had that sort of beef going on, but there's been many over the years. There's so much overlap. Like if you draw a Venn diagram of the bettors and DFS guys. There's like so much overlap, but for some reason or another, I think people identify as either a sports bettor or either a DFS player. Can you explain to me why there is so much hostility between these two communities? Or if there even is, maybe your perspective is different from mine, but I see this pretty regularly. And even in 2023, I still see this pretty regularly.
Yeah, it's just a combination of FOMO and arrogance. I mean, people are, fearful that they're missing out somewhere else, what they don't know. And so then they project against it. And then there's the arrogant side of things. And the reality is, you could apply both things to either one. And like, you can probably find some edges. Like if you're a great DFS player, you can probably go out and figure out a way to beat props. If you're a great bettor, you can probably find some edges in DFS, especially in the early days where there was like, that's where I saw even more of it. And like, I always was like, man, what are you guys doing that are on the DFS side, like being arrogant to these big sports bettors? You really want to get like Haralabob and some of these people like playing DFS? Like these guys are way more sophisticated than what you're doing on the DFS side. So to me, it's always been pretty foolish. I think there's opportunity in both markets. And in general, like, what are you gaining from like trying to bring someone else down? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, but none of that stuff has ever made sense to me. And I get it. Twitter, yeah, people love to do that, and I get that there's shit posters and trolls and people that are really smart and funny, and like there can be a good place for that. But in general, I think most negative stuff on Twitter is just a lose-lose.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
I would like to potentially, if Rob is even listening to this, on Peter's podcast. That, I mean, it's not super active, but the Three Donkeys podcast. They play a game. Man. They play a game at the end, usually called Lodden. I'm wondering if we could do one round. Would we be able to do one round? Well, all right. We got to get Peter to explain the rules for listeners and just, to brush up, and then we'll start a round.
Cool. Yeah. So Lodden thinks the name of the game is guessing whoever you ask the question to, what they think. What the actual right answer is irrelevant. If I asked Rob how many stars are in the galaxy, which I think is a question I answered egregiously, the right answer is irrelevant. But Johnny and I would just be trying to guess what Rob is going to guess. So that's the name of the game. Whoever Lodden is, you're trying to guess what they think. So it's a fun game.
So essentially, we all reveal like our phones with the number at the same time.
And that's what we did.
Yeah. So if Rob says 1 million, and then Peter says 1 billion, which is probably closer, then and I say 2 million, then I would get the point there.
You would win. And the way we do on like real, and there's really big numbers, is the multiplier, because someone might be closer in terms of like the actual number, but they're way off on like a multiplier perspective.
Okay.
So if like the right answer was like 10 million and someone said 100 million, but someone said 1,000, right? Like obviously the 100 million to 10 million is a bigger gap, but it's only 10 times differential, whereas the 1,000 and 10 million is, and maybe I did the math wrong there, but like you get my point.
Yes. Completely get it. Yep.
Okay. So I guess we got to put you on the spot, Peter. You're starting off.
So I have to ask a question?
Yeah, pick who you want to ask to, and then I guess we'll play one round.
This is
okay, cool.
This is a very scary one because you can't hide. Like,
no,
you can't hide from this.
It airs as is. So
of course, yeah, I don't care. I've looked like an idiot many times before, so don't worry.
Okay, Rob, how many people in the United States named Mike made a bet in the last year?
Okay. I won't look anything up.
You're allowed
either.
to use calculators, right?
Yeah, I'm not looking at anything. I'm just going to my phone. I'm not Googling. I don't know how.
How would you look this up?
You figure out how many mics there are?
The first thing I would look up is the population of the U.S. So I'm now estimating that in my head. But I'm not going to give you any more information. You guys can think it over. Named Mike. Made a bet.
In the year 2022. We'll just say that. Keep it easy.
In this year, okay.
Mike, Michael, any iteration of Mike.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hold up. You have to write it on your phone.
Yeah. Here. Gotta open up. I don't use notepads like everyone else does, but I'll... Okay.
I got an answer.
All right, I got an answer. Want to show?
I said 250,000.
67,000.
I said 1 million.
But there's no way, bro.
So here's the logic.
I don't think that's... I started off at 500K for what it's worth.
Okay.
So here's the logic. I'm estimating the population of the United States, which I don't know, but I'm guessing 350 million.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
300.
So from there, I know that 20% of adults have made a bet in the past year. So I'm deducing now what population of that is male. I'm guessing at least 90%. So I use a 90% figure roughly. And then I think Mike is probably the most popular name. So I did something like in the 3 to 5% range of adult males are named Mike. That might be an overestimation, but that's
with those calculations, you're roughly at going to be 1 in every 80 people is named Mike.
I don't know. I mean, I think Mike is an extremely popular name.
It could be. All right. Anyways, the name of the game is to get, to get close to
remember that like the newer names.
Here's a great one.
Fair enough.
Are not of the adult population yet.
I think we're all low. Michael is ranked as the 5th most popular in the name in the United States with an estimated population of 4.13 million.
4.13 million.
4.13 guys named Mike.
Now, what percentage of those are adults?
Wait, but you have to go 21 and then plus 20, population.
Correct.
First,
and then you take roughly 20%.
Your guess is probably pretty darn good.
You know what? Pizzola's the man. All right. I got one.
I would have guessed way under 4.1 million. That's why I kept going low. I thought there might be like 1 million or 2 million Mikes.
Mikey, it's a popular name. All right, I guess so. I got to ask. I got one for Peter. So mine would be, how many keyboard keys on laptops only are there currently in Canada?
In Canada? How many keyboard keys are there? These are really good. They get you thinking. That's a really good one.
Gets you thinking, man.
I could really embarrass myself on my knowledge of Canada here.
The other thing with the Mike one is like you could think of populations of percentage of mics in a certain area or number of mics. Like you might have way more mics in Philadelphia, New Jersey,
more mics bet offshore. I'll say that right now. More mics are betting offshore.
That's a great one. This is a great question too. Just laptops.
Just only laptops. It also includes if you have a second laptop. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be your active laptop.
Yep. Someone could have 10 laptops in theory.
Yes.
All right, I got an answer.
All right. My answer, I just got to quickly calc this because
I'll put it on my phone as well, just so you know that I'm not trying to dirty you with.
Okay.
Yep.
So, all right, I went with so keyboard keys. I went with 1.125 billion.
Wow. I went with 300 million.
Wow, I'm terrible. I went with 12 billion. So I did some math wrong somewhere.
Well, maybe not.
Okay, well, I'll walk you through it. Okay, so what I did...
How many people live in Canada? I don't know. I was guessing 50 million.
Yeah,
I said 50 million.
So I went 36 mil. I mean, I think it's roughly that.
I didn't even look this up. I just assumed it was roughly 30, but you're probably right.
Okay, so I went 36 mil, and then I went roughly... so I think I did roughly, based on the 36 mil, I did 15 million laptops.
Oh,
50 million or 15?
1.5.
I went way lower.
Oh, see, I went way higher on laptops, which is where I made a mistake, obviously.
So I went essentially almost like just in between one laptop for every like 2.5 people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't have a laptop.
So my thing is this.
Kids and stuff.
In Canada, outside of like the major cities of provinces, you got a lot of
desktop users.
Or no computer people. Let's put it that way. Like,
I underestimated that.
If there's like a way higher percentage of people in Canada that actually don't even own a computer relative to other countries in the world, just because there's a lot of remote areas.
People probably have less laptops now the more I think about it because of phones and tablets.
I don't know.
I was thinking like 1.5 with like work and people like, and I guess a lot of people probably just have desktops. I made a really bad assumption on how many laptops there were.
Okay. No. So wait, what did you assume laptops per person?
I assumed like I thought there was like 100 million laptops, and then I overestimated the keys. So I'm looking at my freaking thing, and I just
guessed
realized
100
this is
keys.
way more keys than a
Pete
freaking
went with the
laptop.
number scroller.
I guessed 100 keys, but like I don't even know how many keys there are on a keyboard.
I think I can't, mine, it's like 15 times. They're all different though. That's the thing. If it has the numpad.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why the laptop. Yeah.
All right. I hope the listeners are enjoying this and no one shut it off yet. But we got one more to go. So I think that was my question to
me. We need.
So I'll make
we
you
need to ask you a question, Johnny.
So
Okay.
Rob asked me.
How many swimming pools are there in the United States?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. And you could Google that too. So we can confirm who's
We
right.
can confirm that answer.
Now we're gonna look like jackasses here.
I can't believe how many mics there are, and I way overestimated how many laptops. There's probably like one for every 4 or 5, maybe. Cell phones are taking over. Like if you're a 12-year-old, you don't have a laptop; you just have a phone.
Yeah, and older people now they're on the iPads. That's it.
Yeah, I fucked that up so bad.
And there's my father who refuses to get rid of his desktop.
But also, I personally have like 4 laptops, like just around.
I have 3 laptops at home. Yeah.
Yeah. So there.
I mean, I definitely came under budget. Like I significantly underestimated.
Swimming pools, does that count like a plastic little pool you get from like somewhere, or does it have to be like a pool that's like under like dug
Rob.
in ground?
What do you think?
Let's do.
You can add any clarification you want. You can make it as big as you want, whatever clarification.
Let's do like in ground, but it's not. I don't want to say not just residential, but
Okay,
like
so
community
hotels and
centers,
stuff
hotels,
counts.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
It's a hot tub count.
Let's say a hot tub counts.
Oh, baby, that changes the answer.
It's a lot of hot tub onlys.
Okay.
I like that though. That makes it more fun.
Yes. Swimming pools, hot tubs, in ground.
Zach, you put in an answer here.
I haven't, and I probably shouldn't because I'm trying to search up so I can get an answer
Okay,
for you guys.
fair enough. I appreciate that.
Wow.
Okay, I have one number here that is come from 3 different sources, and it's the exact same number, but I'm just trying to confirm exactly what it entails.
Okay.
So,
All right. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Even if to use that as a rough estimate is fine.
My number's probably so bad.
A lot of people have pools in the States, man.
okay, confirmed that this number that I have here is for what you guys were looking at.
Okay.
Cool. I can give my answer first. I said 35 million.
Okay. I said 16.5 million.
7.3 million.
Okay.
That's really close.
No, I'm
We're
done.
both like 2x.
Well, what
Oh,
did
you know, you're close. You're close. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the other way. You win. That's
Rob,
an easy answer.
Rob won.
I was thinking we were asking Rob. You won. Nice work.
So all I did was think of a ratio that I thought worked. And I think 1 out of every 20 people, like being a pool or a hot tub for 1 out of every 20 Americans sounds about right to me.
So I lowered the household for me, and then I ended up going with 1 in every 55 Americans.
Okay. You went 1 in 55.
Yeah, 1 pool per 55.
I'm very interested in the actual number.
Okay, wait. You didn't. So
Yeah.
what was yours, Peter?
I think it might be higher because of like all the businesses that happen, but I could be totally wrong.
Okay. Zach? Wait, what was Peter again?
I was 35 million.
So 35, I'm 7, and Rob is?
16.5.
I'm definitely low.
10.7 million.
Wow.
You nailed. You guys nailed it. I went way too high.
Price is Right rules. Johnny definitely. And either way, it doesn't matter. He's still closer. No?
I was 7, 3,
Or-
3, 3, 3, 3, 3.
You guys nailed it, and I'm the American. You know, I'm here. I should be closer on that. That was a lot of fun.
All right, what a game.
It is a really good
Play
game.
at home with your friends.
That
Pete
is
Jennings, John Bales, and Adam Levitan taught me this game indirectly via their podcast, which you can check out as well. Are you guys still doing the podcast? What's the deal with that?
Hopefully we bring it back. It got paused again, and it's been paused multiple times. So I hope one day we actually get in the cadence and do it, because it's a lot of fun for us.
Do you guys have like a producer and stuff?
No.
See, that'll probably keep you honest. Zach
there's a lot of moving pieces. I love doing the pod, but yeah, hopefully it comes back one day. We need to put an infrastructure and stuff in place to keep us honest, for sure.
Is there anything else? I know you've been very generous with your time, Peter. Is there anything else you wanted to touch, or any other businesses you're involved that you would like to promote?
No, this has been super great. I'm really happy we got to talk through all this stuff. I could talk to you guys for hours and hours, all similar backgrounds. Love this space. Love what you guys are doing. And yeah, BetStamp's been awesome. People always ask me where they can track their bets, and like, you guys have absolutely crushed it. And we built that at Action Network, and I think you guys have done the best job by far. So kudos to you guys.
Appreciate that.
It's awesome what you guys are building.
I should have asked, instead of swimming pools, how many pairs of sneakers you thought Jennings had. I think that would, because I honestly have no idea.
Oh, and he still guesses because it's
its own, because he's guessing what you would think.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Always seen you.
You want to go close?
I've been slowing down.
You've been slowing down.
Bought more sneakers in 21 and 20.
Bear market on
bear
sneakers.
market. Got to cut down the sneaker buying.
Wait, I got a question for Peter. I'm really into the sneakers too. What's your favorite pair that you have? Not like the best, not the most valuable, but like your personal favorite pair you got.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with the Jordan 1s now, the lows for golf and for wearing out. So some colorway of those. There's the black and purple ones I like for golf and for wearing. There's definitely like a coolers. There's some sneakers I like aesthetically more. I really like the 4s. I hoop in the 11s, but just for like day-to-day golf and going out, I'm really into the 1s. What about you?
Well, mine are the Air Max 90s. I don't know, something about the Air Max 90s. That was the first pair of like legitimate like sneakers that I went out and bought myself. And then since then I like have an affinity for the Air Max 90s.
Yeah, I love those. I have some like wine cork Air Max 90s that are really cool. They're golf shoes. I've never worn them. They're like, I don't know. I love them too.
That conversation is so far out of my comfort zone. I'm like the old man.
I'm not a big sneakerhead. I mean, listen, I know what they are, but I'm not a massive collector myself. But I'm like only a bit further ahead of you. Don't worry, Rob. Peter, we have one last closing question. Is it okay? There you go. We have you heard it there first. We have one last question for you, and it's the question we ask all of our guests. If you could go back 5 years and talk to a previous version of yourself, what advice would you give?
I would tell myself to definitely keep things more simple and stay in your lane. Focus on what you really know, and that's why I'm, as we talked about throughout in the pod, like really focused on the sports stuff, especially in the short term. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake I've made over the last 3, 4, 5 years, is just thinking I know more about things I don't know anything about. Good advice.
I would agree with it. It's not a matter of whether I agree or not, but I would offer that same piece of advice to others as well. And I like that. That was something that was unique that we haven't heard before on Circles Off here. His name's Peter Jennings. You can follow him on Twitter at CSURam88, not C Serum. What'd you say? What did
C-Seram.
C-Seram.
Hopefully I can buy at Peter Jennings one day.
Yes.
That's a no-brainer.
What's the holdup?
I've been trying. One day, if you're out there, if you're listening to this pod, at Peter Jennings, please hit me up so I can get away from this Twitter handle.
We bought the betstamp one, the app betstamp, off a guy who had it, and I DM'd him and I turned notifications on in like a burner account. Finally, he ended up DMing me. I'm like, buddy, like, well, like, what do you want for this handle? And he's just like, have it for free, man. Like, mate, he's like, have it for free, mate. If you're ever in Ireland, buy me a pint. I'm like, done deal.
That's amazing.
So you got to get the same luck with Peter at Peter Jennings.
I love that.
Support his brands as well. Unabated Sports, Establish the Run, The Solver Sports, Underdog Fantasy, Better Pool. Thanks, Peter, very much for joining us here on Circles Off.
I had so much fun. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.